A shocking development just exploded onto the world stage, something that Keir Starmer's government can no longer sweep under the rug. What began as a controversial case involving a single mother imprisoned over a tweet has now spiraled into a global scandal. The Lucy Connelly outrage, once dismissed by many as a domestic problem, has caught the eye of powerful international figures. The spotlight has shifted, the stakes have risen, and the political pressure on Starmer has reached an unprecedented peak. The world is watching, and Starmer's silence speaks volumes. Let's unpack exactly how this situation escalated from a local legal case to an international crisis that threatens to destabilise the very image of Britain's democracy. Lucy Connelly's story is no longer just about one person facing harsh punishment for a social media post. It's become a symbol of something much darker: the erosion of free speech, selective justice, and a government willing to punish dissent instead of protecting true safety. For those who thought the UK was a beacon of democracy and fairness, the reality unfolding right now is shattering that illusion. To understand why this case is sending shockwaves globally, we need to look at what really happened. Lucy Connelly, a British mother, was jailed, not fined, not given a suspended sentence, but actually locked behind bars for a tweet she posted and then deleted. The message, not a threat, not hate speech, but a single comment that offended someone. Yet here we are in 2025, in a nation that once championed free speech, witnessing a parent locked up for expressing an opinion online. This is not just alarming, it's unprecedented in modern British history. What's more, this isn't a quiet story buried in obscure news articles or dismissed by mainstream media. It has captured the attention of powerful political figures beyond the UK's borders. US Senator Marco Rubio, a key member of committees overseeing intelligence and foreign policy, has publicly announced a formal investigation into the Lucy Connelly case. Rubio's involvement signals something critical. This is not a trivial or isolated issue. When someone who understands the dangers of authoritarianism speaks out, it sends a warning that Britain's current trajectory is deeply troubling. Rubio's investigation means that this case has now transcended British politics. It has become a matter of international concern. Governments worldwide are watching closely. What message does it send when a mother can be imprisoned for a tweet, while extremists and violent agitators remain free? How can a government justify such a blatant double standard? These questions are now being asked on the world stage, and the answers are exposing cracks in Starmer's narrative of fairness and justice. But why is Lucy Connelly being targeted? Why isn't the government focusing on actual threats to society instead of silencing a citizen for speech? The answer reveals a much larger and more dangerous pattern: the politicisation of justice. This government appears to be prosecuting people not based on real harm, but on ideology. If your views don't align with theirs, if you express conservative or patriotic opinions, or if you question the official story, you risk becoming their next target. Lucy's case is just the tip of the iceberg in a broader crackdown on dissent. This crackdown doesn't just threaten individuals like Lucy, it threatens the very foundations of democracy in the UK. A society that punishes speech based on ideology is no longer free. And while many British media outlets shy away from covering this fully, voices from abroad are raising the alarm. They see what's happening for what it truly is: an attempt to control the narrative by crushing opposing voices. The government isn't protecting the public from danger, it's protecting itself from criticism. The fact that a mother has become the symbol of this crisis makes it all the more shocking and sinister. Why would a government allow dangerous extremists to roam freely while imprisoning a parent for a social media post? This is not justice, it's intimidation. It's a clear message sent to anyone who dares to speak up: remain silent or face severe consequences. If they can do this to Lucy Connelly, they can do it to anyone. The international attention this case is now receiving has made the stakes higher than ever. Starmer's government is no longer operating in a vacuum. Pressure is mounting from Washington and beyond, and the world is watching how the UK treats its citizens who challenge the status quo. This is not just about one tweet or one mother. It is about the future of free speech in Britain and the global perception of its democracy. Starmer's claims of fairness and unity are being exposed as hollow. Instead of leading with strength, he is reacting out of fear. Fear of dissent, fear of losing control, and fear of having to answer difficult questions. As international scrutiny grows, so does the risk that Starmer's position will become untenable. Because this isn't some hidden secret, it's happening in the open, and the truth cannot be ignored. The government's attempt to silence this story has failed. More and more people, both inside and outside the UK, are waking up to the reality behind the polished speeches and photo ops. They see a government willing to criminalise speech that challenges their narrative. They see a government that has sacrificed freedom on the altar of control. And they see Lucy Connelly as a powerful symbol of resistance, a warning that if we do not act now, this repression will only get worse. The question now is, what will the people do? Will they accept this dangerous new normal, where free expression is punished and dissent is crushed? Or will they stand up while there is still time, before the government tightens its grip even further? The answer is not just important for Lucy Connelly. It is crucial for the future of Britain itself. The Lucy Connelly case has quickly evolved into a defining moment for the United Kingdom, exposing a deeply troubling shift in how the government treats free speech and dissent. This is no longer simply about one woman's unfortunate legal predicament. It's about the erosion of fundamental freedoms that have long been considered cornerstones of British democracy. Starmer's administration finds itself at the centre of a storm it cannot control, as mounting evidence reveals a pattern of selectively enforced laws designed to silence critics rather than uphold justice. The case has ignited fierce debate, both domestically and internationally, forcing a spotlight on the British government's priorities, and the answers are unsettling. At its core, the case challenges the very definition of justice in modern Britain. Lucy Connelly was punished with imprisonment, a severe and rare penalty, despite the fact that her tweet did not incite violence, hatred, or any clear threat to public safety. Instead, the punishment appears disproportionate and politically motivated. This selective approach undermines public trust and raises serious questions about the independence of the judiciary when faced with cases that involve politically sensitive subjects. Legal experts and civil rights advocates alike have condemned the ruling as a dangerous precedent that could chill free speech across the country. If expressing an opinion online can lead to jail time, the chilling effect on public discourse will be devastating. Internationally, the repercussions have been swift and severe. The involvement of US Senator Marco Rubio, who has publicly expressed deep concern and called for a formal inquiry, marks a significant escalation. Rubio's investigation signals that allies of the UK are increasingly alarmed at what appears to be a slide toward authoritarianism under Starmer's government. The United States has long considered Britain a key partner in upholding democratic values worldwide. Yet, this case threatens to undermine that relationship, casting doubt on Britain's commitment to these shared principles. Rubio's vocal stance has given the issue a level of legitimacy and urgency that cannot be ignored, forcing British officials to grapple with consequences far beyond their borders. This international scrutiny adds to the pressure building at home. Public opinion polls indicate growing dissatisfaction with Starmer's handling of justice and free speech issues. Citizens are increasingly aware of the disparity in treatment between ordinary people, like Lucy Connelly, and high-profile figures or groups whose actions cause real harm, yet face little to no accountability. This double standard feeds into a broader narrative of a government out of touch with the people it is supposed to serve. The perception that the legal system is weaponized against dissenters and political opponents is corrosive to democracy and risks alienating large segments of the population. Moreover, this case has galvanized a wide range of activists and grassroots organizations who view Lucy Connelly's imprisonment as a symbol of resistance against oppressive state power. Online campaigns, petitions, and protests have spread rapidly, amplifying the outrage and keeping the issue in the public eye. The viral nature of the outrage has made it impossible for mainstream media outlets to ignore, even those that initially downplayed the story. This groundswell of support for Lucy is emblematic of a growing demand for transparency, accountability, and respect for individual rights, a demand that is increasingly difficult for the government to dismiss or suppress. The government's response so far has been evasive and defensive. Rather than addressing the core issues raised by the case, Starmer and his allies have resorted to rhetoric aimed at discrediting critics and portraying Lucy Connelly as a troublemaker who deserved her punishment. This approach has backfired spectacularly, reinforcing the perception that the government fears scrutiny and is unwilling to engage in honest dialogue about the limits of free speech and the role of justice. Attempts to justify harsh measures on the grounds of national security or public order ring hollow when weighed against the facts of this case. The narrative of protecting society becomes thin cover for political repression. The implications extend beyond Lucy Connelly herself. If unchecked, this pattern of selective enforcement threatens to create a society where fear dictates speech and conformity is enforced through the threat of legal action. Such a society would stifle creativity, innovation, and honest debate, the very qualities that have long made Britain a global leader in democratic governance and civil liberties. The chilling effect on speech and political expression would not only harm individuals, but also weaken institutions and undermine the rule of law. International partners are watching closely, and some are beginning to reconsider their diplomatic relationships and cooperation with the UK. Trade deals, intelligence sharing, and joint security efforts depend on mutual respect for democratic norms. If Britain continues down this path, it risks isolation and damage to its global standing. The Lucy Connelly case has become a litmus test, revealing whether the UK remains committed to its democratic ideals or succumbs to authoritarian tendencies disguised as law and order. In the face of mounting criticism, the opposition parties in Britain are seizing the moment to challenge Starmer's leadership. They argue that the government has lost touch with the public and is using the legal system as a weapon against political opponents rather than a tool for justice. Calls for independent investigations and reforms of the laws governing speech and online conduct are gaining momentum. These developments further destabilise Starmer's position, as internal party pressures and public dissatisfaction converge to create a highly volatile political environment. The stakes could not be higher. The Lucy Connelly case has become a symbol of a much larger battle over the future of free speech and democracy in the UK. It is a battle that will define Starmer's legacy and the course of the nation for years to come. As international attention intensifies and domestic unrest grows, the government's ability to respond transparently and justly will be tested as never before. The choices made in the coming weeks and months will determine whether Britain upholds its proud democratic traditions or slides into a troubling new era of political repression. The silence and evasiveness from Starmer's camp are no longer sustainable. The world is watching, and so are the British people. Lucy Connelly's story has become a rallying cry for freedom and justice, a call to action that cannot be ignored. The question remains, will the government listen, or will it double down on a dangerous path that risks undermining everything Britain stands for? The fallout from the Lucy Connelly outrage continues to ripple through every corner of British society, exposing a fault line between the government's tightening grip on power and the public's growing demand for freedom and transparency. Starmer's administration now faces mounting calls for accountability that threaten to shake the foundations of his leadership. The government's strategy to minimise the incident and discredit Connelly has only fueled deeper resentment and suspicion, creating a tinderbox of unrest that could ignite political upheaval. This case is no longer isolated. It represents a broader conflict over who controls the narrative and how far the state can go in policing thoughts and speech in an age of digital communication. Meanwhile, the judiciary is under intense scrutiny. Critics argue that judges are under pressure, whether direct or indirect, to deliver rulings that align with political objectives rather than legal merit. The Lucy Connelly case stands as a stark example of this concern. Legal scholars question whether impartiality can truly be maintained when high-profile cases become pawns in political battles. This perception erodes confidence in the legal system and undermines the rule of law, a dangerous trend for any democracy. The separation of powers, designed to prevent abuses and protect citizens' rights, appears strained to its breaking point in Britain's current climate. Public protests have grown in both size and intensity, spreading from London to smaller towns and cities across the country. Citizens from diverse backgrounds are uniting in opposition to what they see as an unjust and politically motivated crackdown on free expression. These protests are marked by passionate speeches, social media campaigns, and grassroots organising that transcend traditional political divides. People who may not agree on many issues find common ground in their defence of fundamental rights. This broad coalition poses a unique challenge to the government, as attempts to dismiss the movement as fringe or extremist have failed to dampen its momentum. The role of social media in amplifying the Lucy Connelly outrage cannot be overstated. Platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram have become battlegrounds where narratives are contested, and public opinion is shaped in real time. Hashtags calling for justice and reform have trended worldwide, drawing support from international activists, legal experts, and ordinary users, outraged by what they perceive as government overreach. This digital activism has forced mainstream media to cover the story extensively, ensuring that the outrage remains front and centre in public discourse. The power of social media to mobilise and inform has transformed what might have been a localised issue into a global movement. International governments and human rights organisations have also taken notice. Reports from watchdog groups have criticised the UK for failing to protect freedom of expression, urging the government to reconsider its approach to such cases. Diplomatic pressure is mounting as allies express concerns about the implications for democratic governance. Some countries have even begun to review their own relationships and agreements with Britain in light of these developments. The global reputation of the UK as a bastion of liberty and rule of law is at risk, forcing Starmer's government to confront uncomfortable questions about its policies and priorities. The economic impact of the ongoing crisis is beginning to surface. Investors and business leaders worry that political instability and negative international attention could harm Britain's economic prospects. Confidence in the government's ability to manage crises and uphold democratic norms plays a crucial role in attracting investment. The uncertainty surrounding the Lucy Connelly case and its fallout contributes to a broader perception of instability that could have lasting effects on markets and trade relations. Economic experts warn that continued turmoil may lead to reduced growth and increased volatility, adding another layer of pressure on Starmer's administration. Despite the mounting challenges, Starmer has shown few signs of shifting his approach. His public statements have been measured but firm, emphasizing law and order while dismissing critics as politically motivated agitators. This stance reflects a calculated effort to maintain control and avoid appearing weak in the face of criticism. However, this strategy risks further alienating a public increasingly skeptical of government intentions. The refusal to engage meaningfully with concerns over free speech and justice fuels the narrative of an administration out of touch with its citizens' values and fears. The opposition parties are capitalizing on the situation, using the Lucy Connelly case as a powerful weapon to question Starmer's leadership and the direction of his government. They highlight the case as evidence of systemic problems within Labour's approach to governance and justice. These attacks resonate with voters frustrated by perceived hypocrisy and heavy-handedness. Calls for an independent inquiry into the case and the laws that allowed such a punishment are growing louder, with some opposition figures promising to make this a central issue if they gain power. This political pressure further isolates Starmer and intensifies the crisis. In this volatile environment, every decision and statement from the government is scrutinised for signs of weakness or inconsistency. The Lucy Connelly case has become a symbol of broader fears about the erosion of civil liberties and democratic accountability. For Starmer, the path forward is perilous. He must find a way to restore public trust without conceding ground that his government views as essential to maintaining order and authority. How he navigates this crisis will not only shape his political future, but also the future of British democracy itself. The stakes continue to rise as the global community watches closely. The outcome of this crisis will send a clear message about the UK's commitment to free speech, justice, and democratic governance. It remains to be seen whether Starmer's government will respond with reform and transparency or double down on repression and control. The world waits, and the pressure only grows. If you found this update eye-opening, don't stay silent. Share this video right now to spread the truth about the Lucy Connelly outrage and its global impact. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay informed on the latest developments as this story unfolds. Your voice matters. Join the conversation and stand for justice today.